All right, we're live. Hello, 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 hello. I actually put the start time at 6:05 p.m., just like our Tuesday sessions. Um, so I just decided to jump on because I saw a few people were in the waiting room. And while we wait for YouTube to let everyone know that we're here, just let us know who you are. Tell us about your organization. Nikki already put in there Miami Nation Enterprise, Hampton Roads, Virginia, Cyber RMF IT. So again, let us know who you are, the name of your entity, the city that you're from. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you do or what you're trying to do. So thank you, Nikki, for that. And while we wait patiently for everyone to join us on board, we will salute our family, Cliff, Nikki, Maria, that's here a little bit early. I did change the time to 6:05 p.m. How's my sound? Can you hear me just fine? It looks like as long as I keep this microphone close to my mouth, that things are working out good. So Baltimore Count the Cost LLC specializes in financial coaching, notary service, looking to provide office supplies to the government. Good stuff. Welcome, Cliff, today. Interesting enough, this topic that we're discussing, I first started writing about it back in 2018. So back in 2018, they actually had on here, sounds good? Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Back in 2018, 60 Minutes did a feature on the San Francisco Millennium Tower building. Anybody familiar with that particular building? Anybody familiar with the San Francisco Millennium Tower building that's actually leaning? It's a 58-story building, a lot of athletes. There were multi-million-dollar condominium units, and that building is actually leaning. It's been leaning for a while, and 60 Minutes reported it 3 years ago. And how did it get to that point of leaning? And so back in 2018, I started writing an article about what are my thoughts and ideas of how did that happen and why is that happening? And so that really sparked today's conversation because, after sitting on the sidelines and not doing anything about it, and then seeing this particular incident happen recently, I just thought I would share some of the insights that I had from working in the construction industry, and so that I can help some of you avoid some of these mishaps as well. Because maybe you're aware of this, maybe you don't know about this, but I actually I suffered multiple lawsuits from huge construction companies that were targeting us mom and pop businesses. And so they were targeting us small businesses, and they threatened us with lawsuits. And so, for me, this is something that I want to try and help other people avoid. And this is also the reason why I decided to come back into the federal marketplace. So while we wait for people to get here, because we did say 6:05, I see, there's about 9 people in the room. So let us know who you are. I see Leilani's here. I see Clifford. I don't know who else is out there. While we're waiting for people to come on board, just let us know again. Tell us your company. Tell us the industry that you're in, the city that you're in as well. So, and then also give us a like, hit the like button one time so we can help push this out to the world. I think this is an important topic because there's a lot of people in construction, lots of people in construction. And so because there's so many of us in construction, I think if we were just made aware of some of these things, it would help us when you're reviewing that, 60-page contract that you get in the private sector. So again, while you're jumping on board, let us know who you are. Let us know that you're here so that we can find out and see if we can try to help work with some of you out there. So if you've ever experienced or seen any of this thing like this contract I have was 33 pages. This particular contract, 56 pages. This one is 84 pages. So if you've seen or you've experienced anything like that you've seen that companies give you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start at, and like, what should I be looking for? That is why we're making this video today, because I think if you know a couple of like key things within the contract terms, that will help tremendously for you to be able to know that the person that you're dealing with, and for you to make the best decision for yourself whether or not you want to proceed with that contract. Not a sexy topic, right? Not as exciting as how to win $10 million contracts or how to go from 0 to 100 million. But I think it is a necessary topic, and it's something that I believe a lot more small businesses were made aware and they were cognizant of it, then they could fix that problem. Anybody out there heard of the San Francisco Millennium Tower? Anybody out there heard of that project? Anybody? My folks in California? I got a couple people out here in California. Mark, welcome. Brand Factory, welcome. Oya Fesso, welcome. All right, Cavalier Construction out of Baltimore. Medical Consulting, Media, Digital Media Products. All right, again, let us know. I see about 4 or 5 people that let us know who they are. The other people that are watching this, again, tell us where you're from, the city you are, your organization name, and what is that you do. Teddy from TJR Works, Chicago, painting, okay? Let us know who you are. Because, again, like I said, I think that this is a really, really... Oh, it's Nikki. Oh, hey, Nikki. What's up? I see you on here now. All right. So, again, I this for me, like I said, for those that are just joining us, it's really close, and I kind of waited until all of the media attention died down to talk about this subject, because I know it is a sensitive topic, but I think it's one that's necessary. So again, let's talk about some of the first things that happen to folks out there when you are in the construction game. And so it looks like this is our crowd for tonight. So thank you, all the folks out here joining us. Make sure to hit the like button, please. All right, we're going to jump into it. The first thing that that happens that I noticed that people have had experiences with, one of those things is material escalation. And let me show you on the screen. I want to show you a real life example, because that's what we do. Now, granted, this is from 2014, but it's a real life situation. So in this particular scenario, what happens is the same thing that's happening for us right now. So right now, a lot of us, because of the pandemic, because of the factory shutdown, you are receiving delays in your materials. And so what happens is, a lot of times when we buy from the manufacturer themselves will have in here escalation clauses. So the manufacturer will give you a price increase after a certain period of time. But if you signed a contract 6 months ago or 5 months ago, you may not be able to pass that cost off to the prime contractor or the government for that reason. So this is an example where I received a notice of a price increase from my manufacturer, okay, and it says that the project extended past the material protection date, which it did. However, in my contract, it says there is no material protection dates or material cost protections afforded under my subcontract agreement. So my cost went up $40,000 on this particular project. And because I did not have any clauses for material cost protections in my subcontract agreement, guess what I had to do? Eat it. So that hurt. And I want you to be aware of that, so that way you can, when talking to manufacturers, when talking to the contractors, that you're aware of it. Make sure to hit the like button. I see 19 people and only 6 likes. So that's something that I want people to be aware of. The other thing is the tax exemption. Let me show you this. So I'll pull this up on the screen. All right. Now, when you're doing state and local contracts, the majority of the time they're tax exempt. However, in some instances, and Maria will tell you this, we found out that they cannot be tax exempt. So we've had projects where the government, even though the government may be tax exempt, the particular contractor or subcontractor was not tax exempt. And so if you estimated that job or you bid that job without implying the taxes, because you figure it was a state, local, or a federal project, and you can't get that tax exempt status, you have to eat that. So that's second thing I want you to look out for. Nikki said that's happening to her right now, but she hasn't signed a contract yet. Teddy says he just sent over a 99-page contract. So yeah, no, these are real things that are happening. And so I want to talk. I mean, again, we're here to talk about real stuff. I want to give people the information so they can make decisions. And so those are the couple things that I noticed. Now, those aren't even the 7 that we're getting into, right? So that's just like some stuff that happened that, again, I know is affecting people today, right now, in this particular pandemic and during these times. Now, let's get into some more technical things. And let me go in to, where are we at? Hold on. Where's my stuff? All right. So let's get into some technical stuff while we wait for people to hit the like button over there. The 7, these are the actual 7 subcontract clauses that I want people to be aware of. And again, if you're in construction or you have friends in construction, please, please, please do them a favor, do yourself a favor. Make sure to watch this video and pay attention and search for these search for these clauses within your contract. Reasonably inferable. Ooh, anybody knows what that means? Reasonably inferable? Neither did I, right? Because you're like, what is reasonably inferable? That seems harmless, right? So reasonably inferable, a good example of that I have here is that says, when you are looking at construction drawings and it shows a door, all right, and you price to replace the door, it does not tell you that the door needs a frame. And so even though you know that you need a frame for the door, the drawings don't show a frame. And so in your contract, it says you are responsible to buy the frame, even though in the drawings, there is no frame. So that's called reasonably inferred, which means that if you're going to put a door in, you need a frame. Now, seems harmless, right? Well, it's a big problem because let's say it was a window and like we had a project with 300 window replacements, but it does not specify replace the frames. Obviously, the windows have frames. That doesn't mean we have to replace the frames. So that is something that can add up really, really, really quickly. And so what happens is when the design documents are so incomplete that the contractor has to begin drawing too many inferences, the result is that obviously we're now constructing on the fly with materials and methods and things like that, which causes us to lose money. So what it says is the best defense against that is the reasonably inferable clause is to review all your design documents, look for completeness and constructability. And so what we do is we make sure to ask those questions when we are pricing our jobs to primes. Now, this most of the things that we're going to talk about today applies when you're a subcontractor, not really a prime contractor. So most of the things that we're discussing today applies when you're a subcontractor. So as a subcontractor, you want to make sure that you point out things that you don't see, and though they may be obvious, they're not on the actual drawings or they're not written in the documents. And so you want to make sure, you don't want to think to yourself that, well, I'm not going to say anything because I'm going to get a change order later, because your contract may say this clause in it, and then guess what? The person, the contractor who's gave you the contract is going to say, nope, that's your fault. You should have known that the door needed a frame. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. All I'm saying is that these are the types of clauses that people will use against you in your negotiations. And then when you're trying to get like a change order, trying to get paid, they're going to go back to that clause in your contract. So again, what I'm doing here, oh, by the way, just so you know, they told me no because it went directly to the government. Good job, Maria. Cliff won't find conflict like this anywhere. That's correct. I don't know what it is, but I just got my Black's Law Dictionary. Cool. So number 2, pay if paid clause. Pay if paid. Anybody heard that? Pay if paid. So what that says is that's actually in all of the websites. When you look at construction contract clauses, subcontract clauses, this is like number 1 This should put up the number one on my list, but this is like the number one issue that you will find in your contracts. We'll say pay if paid, not pay when paid. You want pay when paid, but this says pay if paid. I actually, in my subcontract agreements, I write paid when paid, because when the government pays me, I pay you, and so forth. But this one is very specific. It says pay if paid. And what it says is that the clause tells the subcontractor that they may have done the work, paid for labor, paid for materials, but the general contractor has no legal obligation to pay you unless they get paid by the project owner. So how do you spot that? In your contract agreements, it usually says there's a condition precedent to the payment will activate a paid if paid clause. You want to look for that in your contract language. Now, the thing about it is most of the time, you don't really necessarily have control over this stuff. So most general contractors are pretty savvy, and they will refuse to actually remove this contract. And so they'll end up just working with someone else because they know how powerful this is. However, for me, the way that I see this is that if you understand and you see these things in there, you can talk to the contractor, you can talk to the project manager. If you really have to take the project, then at least you can communicate that you're aware of these things. And so that will put people on edge that you've actually read the contract, you understand it, and so that you're not a person that they can actually push over. So these things show whether or not somebody wants to operate with you in good faith. All right. Number 3. Right to withhold payment. By the way, let me go back to number 2. So let me tell you guys, number 2. Hey, Quentin Swift, what's up, brother? Hey, Brian Amster, how are you? Nikki. All right. Let me go back to number 2 and tell you how dangerous this paid if paid clause is. In fact, you know what? Let me go to number 3, and then I'll give you the real life example. Right to withhold payment. The owner's right to withhold payment for work is there to protect the owner. Sure, makes sense. But also, contractors should make sure that the contract language doesn't allow withholding of payment for anticipatory breach of the contract. So what that says is that this particular prime thinks that essentially gives them the power to withhold payment because of whatever reason they say. Now, they'll draw it up and it'll be nice and it'll be a good excuse. But ultimately, it says for breach of contract. So anything that you do that they deem like on the verge of breaching it, they have the right to withhold payment. So now, how does that apply in a real world sense? So I'll give you an actual scenario that happened to me a few years back where, and this is why, I say, I showed the example about these buildings and what's going on is as a subcontractor, as a small subcontractor, right? So you get these buildings that are being built and all these people working on the projects. You get the developer, you got the owner, you got the developer, you got the prime, which is probably like a joint JV of some big prime, and then you got primes below them and then subs and subs of subs. And so you get down to the little guys. And us little guys are the ones actually out there putting the concrete, putting the steel, pouring the slab, doing all the work on there. And you can go to any town USA and find this on any projects. So where does this right to withhold payment come in at? What happens is if you're actually working on a project and you're the little guy on the project, and let's say you see something wrong, right? So let's say in my particular scenario, I'll use my real life example. I was building a building, and this is one of the reasons why I didn't write this article like 3 years ago, because I was scared, truthfully, because, it's like telling on people. And so I saw something wrong with the project that had to do with the foundation. But my attorney said, if I disclose this information to the owner and they kick the contractor off, then this will kick into the right to withhold payment clause, which means then I'm not due any of my monies. So you have to make a decision between, and again, I told my bonding company, we told the insurance company, we told the prime contractor, we've got it in writing, we have pictures, everything. The only person that we didn't tell was the owner of the project. And if we told the owner of the project and they removed the general contractor from the job, then they had the right to withhold our payment, and we were owed hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they put people in a precarious situation to make a decision between doing what's right, paying your bills, paying your family, like paying your employees and stuff, and then dealing with litigation, lawsuits, and, you know, them taking to court, which you don't have the ability to stand. So that's why, to me, and again, not just myself. In fact, let's go. I'm going to show you guys so that you know that I did my homework. You know, I have all these cited references as well. So you can go to any of these cited references, and I'll make sure to include it on here. A lot of these are all law groups that put on these clauses that I was able to pull this information from. So it's not just me saying this stuff. This is a widely known problem in the industry that's recurring that no one is talking about until after something like this tragically happens. And so these, to me, there's always an underlying theme or a background to why, how do we get here? How do we get to this place, right? So in my opinion, Teddy says snitching, but in my opinion, we need like a whistleblower's clause to where the small subcontractor guy won't get in trouble or won't lose his financial, all the money he's put out, materials, suppliers, and all the work he's put out for reporting something that was done improperly or incorrect on a project. So, right withhold payment. Indemnify, defend, and hold harmless. By the way, I'm not a lawyer. Just want to put that out there. I'm not a lawyer. And so whenever you have a contract, seek legal advice. I'm only helping to help guide you when reviewing an 80-page contract or a 50-page contract. What are some of the areas that you should go to immediately and see if these things are in there? And so that's why I provided real-life contract examples to show how my contracts had a lot of this stuff in there as well. Indemnify, defend, and hold harmless. So it's interesting about indemnify, and we use that a lot. Like, I use that word all the time, and I mean, I know what it meant, but I didn't really know what it meant. And ultimately, in some of these contracts, they have these broad indemnity clauses, which means essentially no fault requirement. So it says that the clause exists in construction where the general contractor and owners are asking the parties downstream, you and I, the subcontractors, to protect them from harm. Okay, and so what it says in your contract is the language: the subcontractor shall indemnify, defeat, and hold harmless will activate an indemnity clause. And what that means is that they have a no-fault requirement, and it could be nothing to do with your work, no connection to your work at all, but you still have to pay the damages that's related to, and again, when we're talking about, it's a broad form indemnity clause. You still are liable for the damages to work that's done that has nothing to do with your scope of services. And so you could be on a project with 10 other contractors, and this happened to me, and still be liable for that. One of the things that you can protect yourself, it says, is shift the risk and limit the insurance and negligence only to the things within the realm of your scopes of services. Typically, these things are paid out by insurance companies. However, if your insurance company have to pay out a claim because of something that someone else did, it's just like having a car accident. All of us, our insurance is going to rise. And I mean, I remember paying a ton of money in workman's comp, and I paid a ton of money in liability. And so again, it doesn't help you if that happens. Now, it says here, and again, I'm reading this off of the Legal Release website, so that way, I'm making sure I get this right. It says if you agree to indemnify, it means you will reimburse the other party in the contract when there is loss or damage. All right, so ideally, you want to indemnify risks that you've got control over, so things that you got control over that make sense. So you're not offering to pay for loss and damages that someone else caused. And so when you agree to defend another party, which is the defend clause, you're agreeing to pay what it costs to defend them against a suit brought by a third party. Unlike when you agree to indemnify, when you agree to defend, there doesn't need to be a loss that's proved. So if someone can sue, there doesn't have to be any kind of loss, and then you agree to defend that person or defend that entity, whatever the case may be, whoever you stand that for. And then when you agree to hold harmless, you're saying that you would both defend as well as cover the losses, no matter who's at fault. Yeah, it's a lot. So one way to avoid this clause is to only agree, like I said, to indemnify, defend, or hold harmless where you have control over potential losses or damages. Yeah, mouthful, right? Again, just giving you information to draw from, to review, to look at. No damage for delays. This actually came up on multiple websites. Just like the paid contract, literally about 4 or 5 of these legal websites had this particular clause as one of the most destructive clauses for subcontracting agreements out there. No damage for delays. So it says when a clause does not allow the contractor to get paid for delays, it is a no damage for delays clause. So Nikki, you were saying and that was happening for you, which is if there's, now your situation might be a little different. If the general contractor causes delay, if the owner causes delay, they're not going to compensate you or reimburse you. So for example, if you've got, I don't know, 15 guys, 10 guys, or 10 people working on a project, and they say we have to stop the project for 5 days, well, you've got to find a place to put those workers at. You didn't have anything to do with stopping the project for 5 days. The schedule says you're supposed to work. Everything says you're supposed to work. They stop the project, and then you say, okay, what am I supposed to do with these 5 people? I have to still pay them because, you know, they still got to work. And then they say, and here, well, we've got no damages for delays. And so what happens is, it's again, like I said, it's construction risky business. Success depends on completing the projects on time. And they limit your claims that you can make when submitting things that that impact your schedule that you can't control. So things beyond your control that affect your schedule. And so again, we want to look out for this because why? There's so many factors. There's so many other people working. There's so many, like, you know, me, I was putting in metal buildings. If the concrete guy didn't pour the concrete in time, if the bolts weren't set, if the fire hydrant wasn't moved, if the staging area wasn't there, we could not do our job. We had to send out equipment. The equipment's sitting on the site. I'm incurring expenses for the equipment. I'm paying monthly for the rentals. I rented a machine that closes the roof off. You know, maybe Nikki, she's doing underground work and heavy equipment. She's got, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment sitting out there. And she was supposed to start on Monday. Now they're saying she can't start for 2 weeks. Who pays for that equipment? She can't just send the equipment back to where it came from, because if she's not there on the start date, then now they're saying she breached her contract because why? She's getting a notice for potentially impacting the schedule. So there's all these things that you have to consider that go into the mix. And I hope that this is making sense. By the way, if you have questions, put it in there. You know, because again, we want to talk about this stuff. Hold on, let me read some things before we keep going. Hey Room, R. Miller, sheet metal HVAC ductwork guy. Everybody says snitching. Nikki said she dealt with it. It was their fault. She had to eat the cost. Yep. Will says, Eric, this is the thing that happened to you. I watched one of your earlier videos. Correct? Exactly. All right. Number 6. Lien release. So lien release, something that we do standard. A lien release basically is a waiver of your rights, conditional upon payment. So if the prime is going to give you a check, you sign a document that says it's called a lien release, that you waive your rights, and you essentially get paid. As a subcontractor, lien release states that you release claims up to today upon payment of the money that you requested. And if the certification that there are no other claims on the project, and one of the most dangerous parts of a subcontract in terms of being paid for your work. They're normally required on a monthly basis upon filing out your payment application to close out certain portions of the job, which means payment can be initiated by the general contractor. But it's also waiving your rights, saying you have no further rights to payment. So lien releases, we do them all the time. It's pretty standard in the industry. What we want you to be aware of about the lien release is that to protect yourself, you want to carve out specific claims. So, for example, you want to put in writing exceptions on the release that are clear. That way, if you ever have to make a claim later on, you release them from all of the liens except for these items. And so you want to make sure, obviously, you have the paperwork and everything to support that. But I would, when I did my lien releases, I would only release them partially for these particular things. I wouldn't release them wholly and in full for everything because, as you know, in construction, there are always other events, other things happening around that was pushed off, that couldn't be done right away. And so what happens is most people, most of us are so desperate for money that we'll just sign whatever they give us and then turn it in because we need to get a check so we can pay our payroll, pay our lights, pay our bills, and keep everything going. So we're not considering the long-term effects after the contract ends, or when the contract ends, or after it's all over with, all of these outstanding issues that were never resolved. However, you've been signing lien releases the whole time, exempting them from essentially any liability or responsibility with taking care of those other unresolved issues. So just something to be aware of as you're going off in your process. Nikki, I love it that you have a lot of these experiences. That's so great that you can come on and share that. And then the final major thing, and we've got 4 more after this actually, but the final major thing is liquidated damages. The liquidated damages, most of us in construction are pretty familiar. We call them LDs for short. Essentially, it's, if you come in and you deliver the project late, then they will charge you daily, weekly, whatever it is. It's in your contract. And it's essentially saying that, you can't come in and jeopardize a contract. If you do, they're going to charge you a fee. So it says for each day after substantial completion date, activate the liquidated damage clause. What the thing that you want to know about this is this. You want to limit the claim to things that are your company's own sole fault, as opposed to a broad liquidated damages clause. So, for example, you could be required to pay for things that are unrelated to your work. That happened to me. On my project, other people, including the prime contractor, caused the delays in the contract. They passed down the cost of the delays to the subs. So again, you want to make sure that is only applicable to your particular scope of work. So, and then a couple other things that always you want to make sure of in your projects are payments. So you want to make sure what's the process, the timing, documents required, approval process, and the terms of the payment. Changes in work, you want to make sure that you're aware of what's expected, what's not, how the changes will be handled, how they're spelled out in the contract, terms, how long you have to notify the owner of any changes, how the notification takes place, and what to do if there's a disagreement. Dispute resolution, it determines how conflicts are settled, if parties cannot come to an agreement. Arbitration, mediation, litigation, and claims. And anytime there's a dispute between the owner and the construction manager or contractor that may not be settled may escalate to a claim, and you want to know how that's handled. And why is that important? Because one of the things that I learned the hard way, and you know what? We all learn lessons the hard way. I learned the really hard way. One of the things that I learned the hard way was in one of my contracts, it said if there was a dispute and I had to take them to court, it had to be at the location of their home office location. Now, someone said they watched one of my videos earlier. Okay, why does that matter? Well, I'm working in Miami, which is my home base, and we had a dispute. And in fact, I actually filed a lien against the project. And when I filed a lien against the project, I actually, I did the right thing. I filed a lien against the project for monies that I was owed. Now, when it came time to enforce that lien, I actually had to actually file a lawsuit to take the company to court in order to enforce the lien. Well, Guess what happens? In my contract, it says if this dispute arises, we have to. Now check this out. This is where it affects the little guys. We had to defend or sue them in the place of their home office. The company was based out of Georgia. The project was based in Florida. So now, since I had a bond on this project, I had to have not just an attorney to sue them, because again, I could afford an attorney in Florida. All right, fine. I had to have an attorney in Georgia, and I had to have an attorney in Florida. So I'd have 2 attorneys. But since I had a bond on the project and the bonding company was involved, I had to have 4 attorneys. So I'd have 2 attorneys in Florida, 2 attorneys in Georgia, because I had to represent myself and the bonding company. And I had to, represent us both in Florida and Georgia. So now I had to have 4 attorneys before I could even talk about suing anybody or enforcing my lien rights, which was through a suit. 4. That's why this stuff makes a difference. That's why this stuff is super important. Because if I had known all of this when I first got into the project, I would have made a lot different decisions going through this project. Because essentially I was up against a no-win battle. And these people knew that, and they had me exactly where they wanted me. And there are so many predatory contractors out there, which is the reason why I'm on YouTube and the reason why I decided to go into Federal Arena, because of all of this happening out there. But I do understand that there are people that are still operating in the commercial sector, and I just want to make everyone aware so that they can look out for these things and they can know who they're dealing with. The best advice that I can give anyone is to know the people that you're working with, have references. Yes, that's not always possible. I get it. It's not always possible to know who you're working with. It's not always possible to get references from other subs that have done with them. But I can tell you, for your sanity, for your business, do your due diligence with working with any prime contractors, because it really, it can be the difference between heartache, headache, stress, and peace of mind. So, all right, let's open up for questions. Ken says, how are you so upbeat about about being messed with so often? I feel for you, man. What's going on? Welcome to the chat. Welcome. Or one too many and insurance will drop you. That's correct, Will. Does it also relate to plan revisions? I guess I don't know what your question is, Will, on plan revisions, because I'm just getting to it now. Anyone, listen, I'm open for anyone that has anything that they want to say. Nikki says, can you be more specific with lien release? So on the lien release, Nikki, ultimately, and again, I don't know at what point you asked the question. Let me drop to you. Ultimately, all I'm saying is when you're filling out your lien release, if you have, most of us just sign blanket lien releases that essentially it says that, up until this date, they don't owe us any money, even though we have outstanding issues arising with the project. So all the article is saying is to put written exceptions on the face of your release that are clearly stated. So one example that I can give you with me is on one of my projects that I did at the Air Force Base, we had a dispute between a wall that had to be constructed that was not shown on the drawings. And so the prime contractor did not catch this wall. And if you look at, people who know how to read blueprints, when you look at it from the roof plan and it goes A through Z, like let's say A to B, B to C, C to D, E to F. When you look at it through there, they missed a section of roof on the roof plans. And then when you look at the building drawings that shows the actual walls, and if you follow the path, it looks like it's a complete wall. However, if you follow the actual letters, that shows you how it's drawn on there. It's kind of hard to, I can make an illustration for you. Let me see if I can do an illustration really quick for everybody to understand it. Okay. All right. So if you are looking from the roof plan, you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, right, and A. So if you're looking at it from the top down view, that's what you're looking at. But then when you're looking at the elevation side with the walls, I don't know if some people will understand this. All right. So if you're looking at the walls, you see here where it goes E, F, A, B, but do you see how it's missing G and H? So you can't tell from the wall drawing that you're missing anything unless you look at the roof plan and it shows there's G and H. It looks like E, F, A, B, it's a continuous, but really there's a carve out that goes back to G and H. And so you can only see that from roof plan. So the prime contractor missed that on one of my blueprints. And when they missed it, they did not want to acknowledge that as a change order. And so even though I was getting paid throughout the contract, I did not want to give them a release for that particular item because it was still a pending issue, if that makes sense. I know I went a long way around to give that example, but. So, all right, Ken, how are you so upbeat? Ken, I'm upbeat. That's actually a really good question, Ken. Well, the reason why I'm upbeat after being messed with so much is all of the things that happened to me led me to different places in my journey to where I'm at today. If these things didn't happen to me, those bad things, even though I'm trying to, I'm telling people about them and all this kind of stuff, if they didn't happen to me, then I would not have that experience to draw from to share with you here. The other thing is that because of all these things that happened to me in the commercial sector, that's what someone said to me, go back to where you know best, which was the federal government. That's what brought me back into the federal government arena. Because these things happened to me, I had to go out, and because I was in such deep debt, I had to go out and literally pick up this project that was bigger than anything that I ever thought I could do. I would have been terrified to do it normally. But because I was so far in the hole, $1 million project couldn't even take me out the hole. Even $2 million couldn't take me out the hole. So I had to go after a project that was outside of what I thought was my capacity because I needed the money. And so I was so desperate that I needed the money, which is why I truthfully believe that we all can do things that are greater than what we believe out of desperation, if you have to, right? So if you have to. And so for me, Ken, that is the path that brought me here today. So I'm thankful for the good and the bad, and I continue to practice that even now with everything that I incur. So, the problems have never stopped, and the problems I don't think will ever stop. They're just different problems. So for example, today, yes, I don't have those same kind of problems. I have different issues, but I always look at it like I can't see the future. And so there's a reason why this thing has happened to me. And this is exactly where I'm supposed to be at. And so now I just changed my attitude about how I handle these things. as opposed to looking at them like negative. And again, I promise you, at that time, I did not have this mindset. At that time, I was like curled up in a ball. I didn't want to get out of bed. I had chest pains. I didn't want to check my emails. I was scared to check emails. But when I look back at it, those things propelled me to the next thing, to the next, and to the next. And so that got me back in the federal arena. It got me to completely abandon commercial work. It took me to a project that was bigger than anything I'd ever done before. And then that project is what catapulted me to YouTube. That's actually what financed me to be able to go on YouTube and start making content for all of you out there, and which is the reason why you know me. And the reason why I could come on like this and have 40, 50 people come on board, because of all the content I produce out. So all of these things gave me like a superpower that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So that's the way I look at it today, Ken. All right. Brian says it's great. Yes, thank you, Brian. And Brian, when you say I'm a great artist, what's interesting about that is, when you are in these situations and you're working and you can't pay your employees and you can't pay your staff and they owe you money and people are threatening litigation, threatening lawsuits, you don't feel like such an artist. You actually don't even feel like a winner. So it's really hard. And let me show you. Look, Nikki, I thought I did everything right. Here is my claim of lien. Hold on. This is the claim of lien that I had with the company. And as you can see, it was, where is it at? Here's a claim of lien for $100,000. Okay, $720,000 contract remains unpaid. $100,000. Was it $100,994.47? I did everything by the book. Like I did everything that they told me to do, and I still ended up, being defeated because they had an army of lawyers, and so, that was the issue. Absolutely, Ken. Yes, these shenanigans are not happening at the federal arena. I don't see this kind of stuff happening. So, what's going on? Mark, how is the labor shortage affecting construction contracts that were signed up pre-COVID? Would a clause such as material increase be appropriate for a labor increase? All right. The labor shortages for us, we haven't felt that, Mark. So, for me, I've never seen a contract clause for a labor shortage, only for materials. So, we don't have an issue with labor shortage. Really, that comes to when you're first estimating the project, Mark, knowing that you have the team and the staff and the people capable of delivering it within the time frame. So what I would say, Mark, if you've got that issue, just make sure you have a long enough time that you can get the project accomplished with the staff or the labor that you have. And that would help you in that regard. Because I've never seen, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I've never seen a clause that protects you from a shortage of labor. So, yes, Nikki, lessons make me better. Eric, is there a resource you can point us to that can help us develop proficiency in reading blueprints? Ken, it's interesting. That's a very good question. And I remember when I first was trying to learn how to read blueprints. By the way, can you raise your hands in the chat if you understood my drawing? Did it make sense to you? This drawing that I did? I hope it made sense to Maria. That's my baby goat. Anybody else? Brian, does this drawing make any sense to folks? Okay. In fact, let me do this. Let me write on it. Okay. So that's the elevation view, and that's the aerial view or the roof from the roof layout. and this is the elevation view from the walls. So this is the roof, and these are the walls. So, yep, good. Okay, cool. All right. Where is it? Bah. All right. We got the people in here. All right. Yeah, Ken. So actually, when I first got started, and I was trying to figure out about reading blueprints, I went to a lot of people to ask about it, and all of my friends that were contractors, they learned from other people. No one I knew took actually class or schools. The architects were obviously did schools and lessons, but us contractors, we learn from other people teaching us how to read plans. It's actually pretty straightforward. If you spend a couple of months with a contractor in your particular field or industry, they'll teach you how to read the plans. All of my guys taught me how to read blueprints and plans. So I just learned from working with my guys who've been doing this for years. They taught me how to read it. And at some point, I saw somebody who was an AC guy. I first learned how to read air duct plans. So that's actually the first thing I learned how to do was read plans for duct work and for AC systems. So those are some of the first plans I started reading before I actually knew anything about construction. All right. Thanks, Cliff. I appreciate it. Brian, learning is limited when you win. That's right. I still like to win, though, Brian. I don't want to keep learning. At some point, I want to win, not just learn. Sharon Marie, nice. Cliff, great testimony. Quentin Swift, that's so encouraging. Ken, that's correct. There's, federal government, there's a lot of provisions that protect you out here. Nikki says, yep, community colleges. That's a good place to start. Community colleges will help you in that regard. Oh, Brian says he would have been different. Okay. If it was related to his stuff. That's true. All right. Maria says, I remember the story of the drawings. The real drawings. Yes. Oh, I have the real drawings on here. Yep. Reading blueprints of art, it's hard. I needed someone to really understand it. Yep. Go ahead, Mark. Okay, Nikki learned from working with an estimator. Captain Caveman, smooth seas don't make for good sailors, and watching the History Channel isn't going to get it either. Agreed. So, no, what's interesting, so let's talk, it's funny because today I was supposed to do that 8A panel, and what's interesting is that we had 4 people scheduled for the panel, and 1 person showed up. And the interesting thing about that is the person that showed up actually turned out that he knew me, and he had met Maria and I in Orlando at the event that was put on by the national parks. And so what was really interesting about it was he said, Eric, I remember you from this event. And I didn't remember him. I remember his face, but I didn't know where. He's like, I met you in Orlando at this event by like the U.S. Agriculture or Parks, something like that. And I was like, hey, I remember that. And so the cool thing was this particular gentleman showed up to the event. And when he showed up today, we talked, and he was actually, he's been in the 8A program for 2 years, and he's starting to put together all the building blocks for his business. And what we talked about and discussed, and you'll hear it on the podcast that's coming up, was the importance of showing up. And I thought how his name was Tomas, Maria. Tomas is the guy's name. And so I thought how cool was that I was able to use a real life scenario where so many people don't show up. So many people don't show up. I keep telling folks out there time and time again, is that a lot of times half the battle is showing up. Nikki came out to the event and she met our team and stuff up in Virginia. Actually, both Nikki's came to the event. And so many of us, we forget the importance of just showing up and being present. And so Tomas came today, and we were on a call, and it was just him and I talking, and it was supposed to be a 3-person panel. And him and I were talking today, and from our conversation, We exchanged information. We found out that he was working with another one of our Govcon Giant students. And then I found out that he was working in cybersecurity and IT. So Nikki Bradshaw, you'll be meeting with him. He's working on Stars 3 and CIOSP4, and he's got a couple of joint ventures going on. So this person was the busiest person out of all the folks out there, and the one that was experiencing the most success, right? But he's also the one that made time to be present and to show up and to be on the call to give back. And if you read that tweet that I put out there, I'm consistently saying that the people that are present, the people that show up, the people that actually give the most, receive the most. And I think some of you have been a witness to that as well, because, you know, maybe you had the opportunity and you didn't take advantage of it. But really what I find, and he said it, he goes, Eric, what if I canceled on you today? Or what if I didn't come? And it wouldn't have been so dramatic for me, but the benefits to him would have been significantly reduced. We found out that his company was acquired. In fact, hold on, Maria, let me get that information for you. I'm going to pull him up so you can see him. His website looks a lot like okay, I don't know why it's not going up. Tomas. He was actually, so what's interesting, Maria, is that he actually from Fajardo, Puerto Rico. So he actually served in the military. Let me see if you know him. Let's see if you remember him. Tomas Santos Alejandro. There he is. So yep, he's his first company was actually acquired. So his first company was acquired, and it was acquired by a tribal company. And from there, he learned as a general manager working for Alaska Native. He learned all things about actually what it takes to build a business, to build a pipeline, gap analysis, bid, no bid. He learned all that stuff. And so he's applying it to his firm. And right now he's on Seaport. And like I said, he went after Stars 3. He's got several IDIQs. He's working, I think he's at 5 locations at this point. Panama City, Jacksonville, Charleston, South Carolina. He's working up in Rhode Island at the Naval War College, and he's working in Puerto Rico. So I'm telling you, it's just so important. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough for folks out there how important that is. Because it really does make all of the difference in the world for folks. So again, even things like this, coming on calls, talking to each other, meeting other folks out here, networking with other people, I think is such a critical element to your journey in this Govcon space. So I do appreciate the folks that support it. My man said YouTube University. Ken said, "Oh, I got you." But yeah, I don't have anything, Ken, on teaching that stuff. So, but definitely, I just thought that was a lesson today that the other people who have not had the same success in these programs, they are probably the type of people that don't show up. They're probably the type of people that they're, from time to time they miss their appointments. And I've had other students, I'm not going to mention names, that were supposedly meeting with 8A companies that the person canceled, they didn't make it, or they had to reschedule the last minute. And so that, to me, when I hear that type of person talk about what's wrong with the programs and why things are not working, I'm looking back and saying that they should start by looking in the mirror and seeing if they're doing all of the activities necessary. So, I'm really happy for Tomas. And I'm really happy that I got a chance to meet him and reconnect again. And so I'm looking forward to working with him and his team in the future, and also combining efforts with him to go after some stuff, because he's a little bit further ahead of us in certain areas. And at the same time, I'm further ahead of him in other areas that he wants to get into. So there's a lot of mutual benefits to both of us, and it's looking forward to a great relationship. All right. Let's see. Anything else before we close out today? It's 7 o'clock. I didn't want to bore everybody. All right. Yep. Nikki, you owe Nikki a call. Okay, Maria didn't remember him. Cliff is new to the group. Good job, Cliff. Welcome. First YouTube live. Yep. It's interesting, Cliff, because this is not a fun, sexy topic. But I guarantee you today's lesson will save someone thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. If you apply these things today and look at it, even if you ask the question, this is going to save someone $10,000 or more easily, because you're going to be more astute. And part of my obligation and part of my responsibility is actually helping people to become more astute and understanding of what this is, because we don't all have the money to hire lawyers to review all the contracts and every contract. We have limited funds. Even when I was speaking with Tomas today, for where he's at in his business, he has the funding, but where he's heading to go in this business, he doesn't have that funding. So, and this is the same situation all of us are going to find ourselves in as we continue to grow, as we continue to win, as we continue to expand our business, expand our operations, add on team members. That's just inevitably what happens. It doesn't matter if you're at 2 million, you're gonna have that problem. And when you get to 10 million, you'll have that problem. When you get to 20 million, you'll have that problem. So money is a finite resource, and unfortunately, until someone out there solves that problem with financing small businesses, it's still going on and it's perpetual. And so we're looking for a solution. A man Quentin said, never boring, amazing, good stuff. Someone said, it's funny because someone said, Eric, I come up with these different topics. I don't know, this stuff, it comes to me. I really, believe it or not, and I know a lot of people aren't going to make it to the end, so I can say this. I really was afraid to share this information, believe it or not, because, obviously, the backlash that comes with it, right? If you expose one of these major companies, and you've seen this before on TV before, you go out and expose some of these major companies, you get backlash for these things. And some of these organizations are really large, and, so they can do bad things to you. But at the same time, if someone doesn't step up and have the courage to expose them, then in my opinion, there's going to be more things like this, this Millennial Towers and this building collapse happening time and time again, because people are not blowing the whistle on what's happening at the ground level and ways in which we can stop these things. And unfortunately, the law does not protect us from litigation, lawsuits. There's no fund that funds contractors who don't get paid because they ratted out the developers and the owners, or they ratted out the contractors. There's no fund that pays for us. And this happens even with medicine, and they say in our Western world, we treat illnesses as opposed to the symptoms. So I'm just saying, if we go back to the root of the issues and we start there, we could probably fix what's happening after the fact. So yeah, it's easy to go out and raise a bunch of money after this thing happened and a disaster happened, but we could have got to the root of the problem and blown the whistle a long time ago and prevented this tragedy from happening. So that's why I came on. That's why I shared. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Maria, enjoy your session. Lalani, be good. Kenny, take care. All right, I'm out.